All right, Barry again. Going to talk about two last tactics when we're talking about election work here, and we'll talk about where they are in the campaign cycle and how effective they are. And those are texting and postcarding. And again, I said phone canvassing, absolutely the most impactful thing you can do. Phone banking is the second most impactful thing you can do. Texting and postcarding, they can have their places, but they're less effective. And we understand why, right? Like most people, it's funny with texting, they assume they're getting a text from a machine. Where texting comes in handy is, if you're sharing information on text and it's and it's get out the vote period, right? So you're in that last week or two and you're like, hey, early voting has started in whatever state you're in, and do you have your plan to vote, yes or no, right? And maybe you can then, if they say no, you can be like, hey, your vote, your polling spot is this location. And by the way, you can look that up on any address, but you can always go to Google, like, where do I vote, and you can find that out. So don't start doing your text bank or your phone bank without knowing that about the area you're calling or texting. But you can give them that information, and it becomes very transactional. You're there to just get them to vote. But they're not. It's really not a very good persuasion or even voter ID tool. Most people ignore text. I mentioned during the phone banking one, sometimes people get rude. Texting, they get even nastier. They're like, "Oh, fuck off, you asshole," whatever. And I've done this a few times where you're not even supposed to respond at that point. But sometimes I've responded. I remember with one person I responded, I said, hey, I have who I think is your mother on this same list. Should I be, is it okay if I share your text comments with your mom when I text her? And all of a sudden you get this like shock response, go, oh my God, there's a human here? I thought you were a machine, right? And I think that's the thing. When you're texting, people assume it's a machine, and they'll treat you like a machine. They're not going to interact with you. So it's effective. The other thing though with text banks is there's a billion people who want to do text banking because it's easy, right? It doesn't take much work. And there's a limited number of text banks. So what you'll see is, campaigns always need more canvassers. They always need more phone bankers. Usually they say, hey, we got some text banks available. And within a minute or 5 minutes or an hour, whatever, like those shifts have all been taken and there's not there. So don't wait around looking for text banks. They're great when you use them for very tactical things like get out the vote. Now, the last thing I'll come back is postcarding, right? And, everybody wants that kind of easy button. Everybody wants something that says, wouldn't it be great if rather than having to go out, leave my comfort zone and go out and do, knock on doors or make phone calls, I could just sit here and draw on pieces of cardboard and mail them out, and it's going to change the election. And the reality is, no, it's not going to change the election. There is no, if you put yourself in a position of a voter today in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, and, North Carolina, Arizona, whatever, pick your swing state. You're getting, and by the way, watching the Mets-Phillies playoffs now, I'm seeing some of those commercials that they get all day long in Pennsylvania, and it's ugly, right? But you're getting inundated with commercials on TV, with ads on your, on Facebook, with everything you do on the internet, everything kind of doing. You've got every news show is talking about election. And if you at this point, after like months and months and months of that, are still like, I'm just not sure if I'm going to bother voting because I don't think I could support a black woman or whatever it might be, right? The idea that you get a piece of paper in the mail from some random person you've never heard of in a state 1,000 miles away, and you're suddenly going to be like, oh damn, Barry said I should go vote, and I'm going to now I'm going to now vote, even though like I've ignored a million other things. Like the arrogance of me thinking that I could convince someone to do that with a postcard is off the charts, right? No, that's not going to happen. So where can postcarding be useful? Postcarding is useful in a couple of places, very, very specific things. And by the way, I know everybody who's a postcarder is going to come and say, oh, I saw this survey. A lot of those surveys are really focused on things like low information voters in low information elections, right? The special election in August to get a referendum on the ballot in November about abortion rights or something, right? Where it's August, nobody's thinking about elections, nobody's paying attention, and one party's trying to, sneak something in. for that, absolutely, postcarding via. Did you know that there's an election? This thing you need to do. There is nobody on the planet right now that you're going to reach in a postcard who doesn't know there's an election in November. So it's don't give me the stats from the and they were also like during COVID when people weren't going out. It was, you could get maybe 0.1% in some small local election, but for the most part they are not going to do that. So don't pretend, don't fool yourself. Put yourself in the shoes of that voter I described who's getting inundated, just that fire hose of information all day long, and now gets your random postcard, it says, oh wow, I didn't think about it, but Bobby in Indiana thinks I should vote now, right? It's not going to happen. Here's where they can matter, right? In New York, like in many states, we have a ballot referendum on the back of the ballot, right? So we need people to flip the ballot to vote yes to protect abortion and basically to put abortion rights into our state constitution. And by the way, similar things are in about a dozen states around the country on abortion. There's a lot of referenda. If you do a postcard campaign saying, flip the ballot, we know you're supporting Kamala, but flip the ballot, you have to vote yes, right? And you get that concise message to New Yorkers or whatever the message could be, that can be powerful because you're really informing them something they don't know, to flip the ballot, right? It's the same reason you put up yard signs around that. We don't do a good job of that. That can be helpful. The other place where it can be a little bit helpful is going to be things like, voting down ballot. Like, hey, I know you're voting straight here. It's really important that we get this candidate for a local assembly office or whatever it may be. They helped us, last year get this thing done, and particularly if you're in that community, right? So if you're writing to your local, a postcard from someone around the corner is much more impactful than a postcard from 1,000 miles away. So there are places that postcards can work, but they do not do the things that everybody, it's not magic, right? There is no sort of magic button that you can press that's going to let you get, stay in your comfort zone. So all I can encourage you is you have 30 days left, and it's time to get out there and do the work, and that means canvassing and phone banking. And I know if some of you are not comfortable with that, and you're like, I don't want to get out of my comfort zone, think about how you felt in 2016 when you woke up knowing that Hillary lost, right? That's what I call, that's fucking discomfort, right? I'm going to turn around and make sure I don't feel that way ever again, and I'm willing to get outside my comfort zone and do the work, particularly for everybody around me who are going to be the people most impacted if we lose in November. So anyway, thank you. Hopefully this helped a little bit on kind of understanding the campaign election cycle and understanding which tactics and techniques can be used at different times. And thank you so much, and get out there and hit the canvases, hit the doors.